Hey everyone, thank you for joining the live with me today. This should be a real fun one, so gonna kind of wait for everyone to kind of trickle in here. Just live streaming on a random Monday night. We'll see how many people we get to join up. But this should be real interesting. So we're gonna talk about LED walls, LED wall technology, where it's going, where it's at right now in the filmmaking industry, how they're using them in Hollywood, and how maybe we can use these sort of things in our own independent films. Let me know if you guys can hear me and everything's sounding good and proper in the chat. Want to make sure we're not having any technical difficulties. Hey Brad Fogel, if you're still with us, thanks for joining. The Matt222, what's up? How you doing, man? So thank you guys for being here. So as you can tell, I've got kind of an interesting set up here. What do you guys think? Yeah, sounds expensive. Yeah, LED wall technology can get very expensive, but maybe there's some places where it can save money in productions because you don't have to do green screening. So I want to start kind of chatting about that. Now, I'm wondering how many people out there have actually heard that big mainstream films right now are using LED walls to create their movies. And I started hearing about this. Okay, great. You can hear me. Perfect. I started hearing about this in some different podcasts and seeing it in the cinematography magazines and blogs and things like that. So basically, Jon Favreau, amazing director. He just did The Mandolorian and just a ton of other films that are so good, classics like The Elf. But anyways, so the technology that they're starting to do is creating these massive LED walls. And I mean, they're like 70 feet high or something like that and 100 feet wide. And they wrap around in this nice 180 degree wrap so that you can put your subjects and characters or ships or whatever your set is right in the midst of that, and it looks like they're right there on set. Now, this may seem a little like counterintuitive, because if you've ever pointed your camera at a computer screen or a television, you know that it usually films terribly. Like it starts flickering and you can usually see those like weird bands or lines going down through it. And all those things are caused by refresh rates. So whether it's 50 hertz or 60 hertz, and you kind of have to account for that with your shutter speed. So that's one of the first main challenges when you're filming LED walls, is making sure that your shutter speed matches up so you don't get that flicker. So there are a lot of challenges when filming LED walls, but if it's done properly, it just saves so much work in post-production. So yeah, Jonathan G. Rodriguez, you're saying you saw this at Pine Studios. Yeah, exactly. So a bunch of studios are starting to do this now. It's becoming more and more mainstream. And I think little guys like us need to know about this technology and need to know how to take advantage of it. So, because it can really make a huge difference in our own filmmaking, projects and things that we're working on if we could take advantage of this really cool technology. So, yeah, we already talked about how shutter speed is something you need to keep in mind, making sure that you aren't getting that flicker. If your shutter speed is too quick, it will go faster than the refresh rate, and that's what causes the flicker. So you need to usually slow it down and get it slow enough so that it doesn't have that issue. Now, something that I've noticed when doing this kind of filming is that the LED screen needs to be bright enough. If it's too dim, then you can a lot of times see where the pixels are, because they're not, basically your camera is, too HD quality for the pixels that you're actually filming, because televisions and these LED screens usually aren't super high def. Now, what I am seeing in the industry when they're doing these films like The Mandalorian and Rogue One and First Man, all these places where they're using 4K and 8K televisions, or LED panels, I should say. And so they're obviously really high resolution for this kind of stuff. Now, I've found that the brighter the screen, that's going to give you kind of a better capture if it's too dim. So if you guys haven't noticed already, this behind me, hopefully you can figure this out, is just a TV. So I just grabbed one of my spare TVs from the bedroom, and threw it behind me. It's not very big. I think this is a 40-inch, and it's just pushed up just barely enough to make this all come together and make this little image. It's supposed to kind of look like I'm in a spaceship or something, kind of put you into a sci-fi world. But usually if you want to do something like this, you would put a green screen behind you. And if you've ever done green screening, you know it can be a total pain in the butt because you got to get the green screen out, make sure it's stretched nice and tight, no wrinkles if you're using cloth. And then you have to make sure that it's lit evenly. If it's not lit evenly, it's going to be much more difficult to key your image. So when you're using an LED wall or one panel like I have here, no green screening required. I didn't have to put in the image afterwards. And naturally, the camera creates that bokeh for me. So I'm shooting with a 35 millimeter lens at f1.8 right now. And it's creating that natural bokeh. You can see how it's kind of blurred out behind me. And like, let's see, I'm going to get closer to the screen or closer to the monitor, and you can see it'll blur out more. So bear with me. So I don't know. Hopefully you can kind of see that, but it starts to blur out a little more. Let me do my hands so you could see. It's not getting focused. It's too dark. But basically, the cool thing about that is the interaction between your subject and the background will naturally give you that blur. Whereas when you're using green screen, you have to artificially add that bokeh or blur. So I'm going to move my head out of the way, and you should see it should go into focus on this background here. See that? So it's just a little fake cockpit from a spaceship or something like that. But it's all nicely blurred. You have all this nice blur behind me with the way that it's set up. So it's super cool. And you're just not going to get something like that when you're using green screen. It just doesn't happen in camera. So there's so many advantages of using LED technology. So something that I hear them talking about, and I heard a lot about this on the Go Creative Show. If you guys haven't listened to the Go Creative Show podcast with Ben Consoli, definitely go check it out right now, wherever you listen to your podcast, because he's always talking with the cinematographers working on the latest and greatest television shows and movies and things like that. So you can just learn so much stuff there. But I was talking to him about, or I wasn't talking to him, I met him at NAB and I talked to him there, but I was listening to him talk with the cinematographer from The Mandalorian, and his name was, let me look here, it was, it's a little bit harder one to pronounce for me anyways. It was Baz Idoine. Anyway, so Baz was talking about doing this with The Mandalorian, and I guess a large portion of The Mandalorian was just shot on a big LED wall, and you would have no clue. It looks like they're in these cool spaceships and they're on these cool foreign planets and everything like that, but no, half the time they're just in a studio filming against a massive TV, basically, essentially, which is like, what? It seems counterintuitive. We're used to at least George Lucas doing all of his green screening stuff, and you're used to be like, okay, yeah, maybe The Mandalorian's on a green screen, and they did do green screening on it, but a huge majority of it was with these LED walls, which the technology is just so cool. So I'm gonna pull up Google here and show you just a couple examples of what's going on. What's up, Poison777? Thanks for jumping in. So I'm gonna pull up Google, and we can look at a couple examples here once I get it rocking. And let me know if the audio drops when I pull this up. It shouldn't. You should still hear me. But let's get the screen share going. All right, so one of the first places that they started doing walls in the background. So the camera never pointed at them, but they reflected all this realistic light onto her suit and onto her visor and everything like that. So you get really realistic reflections. And that's one huge advantage of using LED walls, is it puts real reflections onto your subjects. So it looks like they're massive screen in front of them, which is so cool because in camera, they shot this all on film. Remember Rogue One, The Mandalorian, and most of the, I think actually all the Star Wars films were shot on film, I believe. So all shot on film. And so right there in camera, they're capturing this and it just looks incredible. I'm going to check the live stream, make sure you guys can still hear me. Yeah. Okay, good. So back to that LED wall from Rogue One. So all those, light beams when they're jumping to hyperspeed or whatever are showing up in camera, in the Millennium Falcon. Like all the reflections are on the characters' faces and eyes and on all the different little things in the room inside of the cockpit. So it just makes it feel so much more live and immersive. And also having these LED walls, I've been hearing from the directors and cinematographers that it actually really helps the talent. So the people that have to actually act in the film feel like they're more there with these huge screens showing them the environment instead of just pretending and acting in front of green screen. It's so much harder to, get what they call your eye line. Like, where am I supposed to be looking? Well, just look right there on the screen and that's perfect. Instead of looking at like a dot or a tennis ball on the green screen or whatever it is, you can just look in the right spot on the LED screen. So it's absolutely incredible what is going on with this. And I just think that it's going to become more and more popular in all the films and television shows coming out. Now, let's keep going here. So yeah, definitely, I'll leave links to all these websites down in the description below, and you can check them out yourself after watching this video. But here's one that's really cool. When they were filming Dunkirk, I love Dunkirk. And so you see like, hey, they got the people in the water, and then they just have a huge LED wall with fire playing on it. So it's just probably a loop of some generic fire or something they got from stock footage, but it's putting all the reflections of fire onto the water. So in camera, it looks like there's fire, but there was no fire, and they didn't have to add it with CG or anything like that. And I've heard this from other films as well, where they took tons and tons of LED panels and they set them up and shine them onto the trees in a forest. So it looked like when the characters were talking and stuff, there was like a forest fire going on behind them because of the lights and everything reflecting off of the trees and interacting with the natural environment and interacting with the subjects. So a lot of times the LED walls don't even have to be in the picture. You don't have to shoot the camera right into the LED walls. You can just use those natural reflections to get what you want in the water and on your subjects and everything like that. So it's really cool. So here's another one with the giant firewall, and this one I think they're on a boat or something like that. Yeah, it looks like they're supposed to be on a boat dock, and some explosion or something, but it's making all of the things interact with that light. So it's very, very cool stuff. All right, Brad Fogel, you're back. What's up, man? So yeah, thank you guys for sticking in here with me. We got a lot to cover on this LED wall stuff. So what do you guys think? I mean, leave a comment down in the down below. Like, are you guys interested in using LED walls for filming your own stuff? Definitely interested to hear. Oh, we're on the wrong screen here. So, still got the screen share going. So sorry about that. Yeah. So very interesting. Very interesting stuff. So now let's pull up the first man. So sorry guys, this is my first time screen sharing. Usually I'm just sharing this video. I'm screen sharing the live stream. Anyways, so all right, so back to this screen here. We have First Man, which is another place they did this, and as I was kind of doing more research on this, I was really impressed. Definitely watch this video. Again, I'll link to this stuff, but watch this video on it because it's so cool to get that all in camera without having to do post-production VFX on it. So, you get your talent inside of this little spaceship, and then you have this huge LED wall outside, so he can be interacting, and you can have the background in it, and because it's blurred just enough, it doesn't look like an LED wall. So that's kind of the secret, is you don't want to focus on the LED wall itself. So as you guys can see here with my own setup, the background is nice and blurred. I'm shooting at f1.8 and it has a pretty blurry, good background and texture to it. So you can't really tell that it's a screen. But if you need to focus to infinity and focus on the background, immediately it's going to give away the secret that you're filming an LED wall. So the cinematographer on the Mandolorian was talking about, hey, whenever we had to actually focus to infinity and see the background, we didn't use an LED wall. We put up a green screen when we had to actually focus to the background. So there are times when you won't be able to use LED walls. You still need to use that green screen technology, but that's okay. You can use both and utilize both in your films. And it's just cool to know that this kind of technology exists and that it's something you can do. So for me, I'm just using this tiny little 40-inch, television, standard normal TV from my house. But you could see how if I was making a short film, I could do something like this. And if I light it properly, it could look just right and real enough for my own scene. And I did a bunch of tests with this. We have the spaceship kind of set up here. But I did other ones with different landscapes in the desert and water. And it could look pretty realistic. So you just need to stay pretty wide open at like f1.8 to f2.8 and keep your subjects pretty close to the camera so that it blurs out as much as possible. But it can look pretty realistic and have a much better effect than green screening. Because with green screening, as you know, if this isn't lit properly, a bunch of issues happen. And also you get that green cast on people's hair. And as you can see, there's no green cast or anything on my hair. All my crazy hair sticking up, you're not getting all that ugly green cast and little stragglers that really give it away. Like if you watch the news and the weather ladies, pointing out the weather storms coming or whatever, you can usually see some pretty bad keying. There's usually a lot of green on their skin and on their clothing and on their hair and stuff. So you have none of those issues when you're working with these LED walls. And like I said earlier, you get the natural reflections from it, so it puts you in that environment. Now, I've tried to match the lighting here on me to the background here, and I've pretty much got it about as good as I can for just quickly setting this up. But I have this really bright RGB red light coming in from the side here, and that's just supposed to kind of give it a sci-fi look. So that's something really key and important when you're doing this sort of setup, is making sure that your subjects are lit properly. Because if I'm not lit properly, or the subject isn't lit properly to the environment, it's going to look fake. Even though you're using an LED wall, it's going to look like terrible green screening, So you got to make sure that your subject matches the lighting that they're in. So I tried to kind of match with some top-down lighting. You can see in the actual, little background behind me that there's some nice harsh lighting coming from above, creating shadows below. So I tried to get the shadows beneath my chin. And then, that red light is just to add that cool sci-fi pop of color. But you could see how if you were actually filming a little short or an indie film with this setup, you could change the RGB colors and make it all match your environment or make them flicker. Let's say I was in a cockpit, I could put other little LEDs right here and make it feel like I'm there. Now, some other little things to help tie your subject into the background are definitely costume and props. So I'm wearing just like this kind of like military tactical vest to make it kind of look spacey or something, like I don't know, in Star Wars or something, right? So the costume is going to help. Obviously, makeup, hair, everything like that is going to tie your subject to the scene. And then you can see I have all these little cables dangling here on my side, and that's just to help make it look more like I'm in a spaceship with like cables and everything going everywhere, and it's kind of crazy. But this little prop helps it tie the background to the foreground and the subject and everything like that. And then I've got a couple more cables right here that maybe you can kind of see blurred out in the front to give us some more foreground, and again, make it feel more like I'm in this environment. And so you can see how you could get creative with this yourself and create your own environments by adding props and costumes and the right stuff to tie the whole scene together. What do you guys think? Does this look very realistic? I'd definitely be interested to hear if you guys think that this sort of setup is looking very realistic. I know I did it pretty quick, but you can imagine you could do some really cool stuff with this, especially with a bit of a budget. This is just junk I found around my house to make it come together. So, yeah, Brad, you're saying the fire effect, you could see that being, a really good, safe way to do it. Lower production insurance costs versus practical fire, definitely. That's absolutely true. And I've heard the fire being put on just giant LED walls in a couple different productions. So I don't know if you guys read the Cinematographer magazine, but in quite a few of them there, I've seen them doing that with LED walls. So if you're creating your own little short films or videos and you need that sort of effect, get a big LED or like a flat screen TV, put on some stock video of a fire and get your subject close enough to it to have that kind of flickering going. So you can see how you get really creative with this kind of stuff. All right, so we looked at the first man. Now let's look at some other stuff here. So pull up my screen. All right, so here's some stuff that is happening right now. So Unreal Engine is really the people that are at the forefront of this technology. So if you're unfamiliar with it, Unreal Engine makes, graphic visual effects stuff and software, and it's what was used to make like Fortnite and everything like that. I don't know if you guys like dropping in like I do, but who doesn't love getting a good dub? So Unreal Engine, though, is really cool because what they're doing is they're creating all these 3D sets beforehand. So before they go out to start filming, they create the 3D set. So this environment here behind the guy on the motorcycle is completely fake. It's just a giant LED wall with these rock structures and everything. And those aren't even photos. This was all completely 3D generated imagery. And I saw a bunch of this stuff from Matt Workman, so credit to him. and everything that's been happening with Unreal Engine. He's really bringing this stuff to the forefront of filmmaking. So really cool stuff. Check out his channel, Cinematography Database. He's starting to talk a ton about this kind of stuff. So anyways, you can create this entire environment, whatever it is you want, using Unreal Engine. And I hear that you can get Unreal Engine for free, and then you can buy different assets and things like that to get like fake mountains and rocks and trees and add all that stuff to it. But so let's say you use this program to create your environment for your character. And then once the character is in the scene, you can actually change all the lighting and everything like that. So he, like in this image, you can see the lighting and everything in the background is kind of flickering and changing colors, going more blue, more warm. So that's so cool. And I heard on the Mandolorian that they're like, hey, we want it to look like eternal sunset all the time in this different scene. So it's like, instead of in the olden days going out and just shooting at sunset for about an hour every day and like shooting for 5 or 6 days straight to get all the takes you need, you can have sunset all day long by using these LED walls. It's like you're controlling nature because you make it how you want. And they would just be like, hey, can we get the sun a little bit lower on the horizon? And they just go on the program and lower the sun, or brighten it up, or dim it down, or add clouds, or whatever it is. And you can do all that. And then in camera, you're getting exactly what it's going to look like. So the cinematographer and the director have more control over the final image instead of putting it into the hands of the VFX artist, where after the fact they're adding it in green screen, and they may not make it exactly how you want it. Whereas if you get it all perfect in camera, exactly how you want it, you don't even have to worry about post-production. And this gets rid of so much post-production work. You just do it all up front. You make the scenes, you light it. Even when you're on set, you can change the scenes and the lighting all on the fly. So it's really, really cool. And then you can see here this giant LED wall that they're shooting on. This isn't even that big of a one. I don't see the size on here, but it's much smaller than the one that they were using for like Rogue One. If we scroll back to that, you can see this one is just huge. And again, I know they were using a massive one on the Mandalorian as well. So it's really cool stuff happening. All right, Brad, let's see what you're saying here. Yeah, so you're talking about using LED walls for filming in cars. Yes, really, really cool stuff. You can definitely, I saw this at NAB and I thought, wow, that's really cool, putting up LED walls on the side and the back and the top to get all the reflections. But that was kind of one of the first times that I've seen LED walls being used for that. And I think that technology is going to get further and further along. Now, it's pretty cool because they used to do reverse projection, right? And it looks kind of cheap, but you put a projector behind the subject and then shine your image onto it. But a lot of times you can tell that it's fake when you're using a projector. But the difference with these LED walls is that the light works differently. So when you're projecting light onto a screen, it's then reflected light onto your talent. And so it's going to interact with the environment different. And also you can't have your subject between the projector and the wall because it'll cast a shadow, right? And that'll look horrible. So there's some limitations. But when you're using an LED wall, the subject can stand wherever and they're not going to cast this huge shadow onto it unless you have a light shining on them or something. And then that light is going to actually push onto your subjects and create a natural lighting environment. So it's much better than using projectors. So it's very cool. So now you may be thinking, yeah, this is all really cool, Chad, but this is for like the biggest production companies out there. And I don't think that's the case. Again, I have this silly little setup right here just with my TV. And I think this is something that you can get those LED walls for a couple $1,000s, of course, depending on the size. But if you have the right budget for it, or you have your own studio and you want to invest in something like this, you could spend between $10,000 and probably about $30,000 to get about 15, 20 foot wall and, 10 or 12 feet ish high for about $25,000 to $30,000. Now that's a ton of money. I don't have that kind of money to make that. But if you are working on an indie film, maybe this is something to think about if you do have a budget and you can get an LED wall to bring these realities to life. So it's pretty cool. So definitely something that I think is going to become more popular. And it's something that I haven't seen in any studios yet outside of LA. Only some studios in LA are setting up these huge LED walls to make these films. So I would love to bring something like this to my local film industry here in Phoenix, setting up just a massive wall and bringing in commercial clients and things like that and being like, hey, let's film your next commercial on this LED wall. It's going to save us so much money because we don't have to go shoot out on location. We don't have to shoot at a certain time of day and worry about sunset or shooting in the middle of the day. You can shoot with perfect lighting all day long and get it all on camera without using green screen, because like I said, green screen is just yucky. I try to avoid it as much as possible. So something that is really cool and interesting as well is when they're using these walls, they want the background to interact with the subject. So a lot of times they're putting basically tracking motion trackers onto the camera, and it saves the information of how the camera moved. If it pan, tilt, and dollies in and out, everything like that, it saves its motion so that the background can interact with that. So if you're kind of parallaxing around the subject, the background can also move and parallax with the camera. So that interaction is all happening in real time. As you move the camera, the background moves accordingly so that it doesn't just look like a stagnant background. Now, like I said here, I'm just using a television. It's flat behind me. It's really not going to move or anything like that. And if I move the camera, you'll see the edge of my TV and the rest of my room. But if you're using a big LED wall that's all curved and everything, you could see how you could actually move the camera around and get multiple subjects in there and get all different perspectives and angles, angle up high and low if you have a large enough wall. Now, I have mine about 2 feet behind me, and that's really not an ideal location for an LED wall. If you're using a big enough LED wall, you can get it 10 feet behind you, 15, 20 feet. That's really the distance you want behind you, because one, you won't be casting a shadow and you won't be getting too much of that light on you. If I'm too close to the TV, maybe I'll get a little bit of unnatural light on me. So you definitely want separation between you. And if you have enough separation, you can get more shallow depth of field. So that's a huge thing. If you're going to be doing this, make sure you have some good distance between the subject and the LED walls. Excuse me. So that's something I've learned. Make sure you have good separation. Another thing is the lighting. So I already talked about making sure that the lighting matches and looks proper, but you can't have any lights right in front of you pointing at the screen. Because if I put an LED, or if I put a light right here in front of the camera and point it at me, then you're going to see the reflection of that light in this TV screen behind me. So I'll kind of show you. I have another light right here. I'll show you what that looks like if I get this thing turned on. So you should be able to see this giant reflection. Here we go. So you see that reflection behind me. It's on this side. So you can see the reflection in the TV of the light. So you don't want to point a light directly at the LED panel or TV you're using, because it's going to reflect. So I'm going to turn that back off. It gets rid of the whole magic of it. And even if I turn up my computer screen, so I'm going to turn up the brightness on it, you can see that now, make sure I'm pointing the right direction here. Somewhere over here? No, it's over here. I'm all turned around. So see my hand in the background and the reflection in the screen. That's because there's a light in front of the television and it's creating this ugly reflection. It gets rid of the thing. So I'm going to dim that back down so you guys can't see it. And then things should look more realistic again. So are you guys liking this? Definitely keep the comments coming in. Let me know if this is interesting to you, this kind of technology and what's going on with LED walls right now, because it's honestly been kind of mind-blowing to me to see how prevalent it is becoming, and on multi-million dollar productions. We're talking Star Wars films here that they're using this in, and First Man and everything like that. So it's pretty crazy. Very popular technology. All right, so let's see. We talked about Unreal Engine and Matt Workman stuff there. Definitely check that out. Check out that whole scene with the motorcycle and everything like that, because it's really cool technology. It's just really amazing. Let's see what else we got here. So let's take a look at this. So screen share here. So an issue that you can get is moire. So when you try to photograph or film a giant LED wall, this is like a live concert, and you can see this terrible patterning on the LED screen. and it's creating this moire effect. So you could see all these black lines and everything like that. And that's because they were trying to expose for the subjects in front and keep the screen. They're trying to keep the screen exposed and not like blow out to total white because it was so bright. So when you stop down too much, you can see all that. So you want to be keeping that aperture open as much as you can to stop moire, and then also make sure that you're getting it blurred out. They've actually focused on the screen, so it's causing that moire effect. So to avoid that, again, you want to be more wide open, be brighter, and of course, light your subject to match that. And then if you can use things like Black Pro Mist, or if you can shoot on film, if you have the privilege to shoot on film, definitely shoot on film and it'll stop a lot of these moire effects. So I know that a lot of these films that are using LED walls have all been shot on film. So I'm kind of jealous. I wish I could be shooting these things on film, but I guess the LED walls mixed with film has been working really good, which is just kind of crazy to think about as we're going like forward in time and technology is getting better. You would think we would stop, like we wouldn't film televisions with film. It seems like so strange, but it's like, hey, let's make 3D virtual environments and then let's film them with film cameras. It's like, what? But it works because the way that interacts, the film thinks that it's real. And if you have enough bokeh, it looks real. So it's really cool to think about. But for us that are using digital cameras like me, Sony cameras and the Blackmagic cameras, just get enough blur, get it bright enough, and don't focus on the background because you're going to get those ugly moire effects. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to use this LED wall technology. So very, very cool stuff. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm covering all the different details here on LED walls. And if you guys have questions, please comment below. I'm definitely interested to hear what you guys are thinking about using these LED walls. So let's see here. Yeah, so Mandalorian has been using it, Rogue One, First Man, Gravity, and Solo. Solo. So all these Star Wars films, everything Jon Favreau touches is amazing, and he's been using that technology so much. I just love seeing the stuff that he's doing with it. So again, to use the LED walls, you want the highest resolution possible, get some distance between you. You need to kind of balance the brightness of it, the brightness of your subject, make sure they're lit kind of the same, add in those colors, make sure the props are there, the costumes, all these different little parts and pieces that can tie the whole scenario together. And I really think this is something that you guys can use in your own personal indie film projects to kind of create like a little sci-fi set, or put someone on the beach in Hawaii when you can't fly to Hawaii for your short film or whatever, especially if you don't want to mess with green screens. So it's just really, really cool stuff happening here. Yeah, so besides those things, I do want to quickly touch on a few other pieces of technology that are part of the future of filmmaking that I think are going to be really popular in 2020 and going forward. So we talked about LED walls, and I also think LED lights are just getting so much more powerful and cleaner and better looking. So LED lights are going to become more and more popular, and tungsten lights and big, huge HMIs and things like that are going to start to go away as they start using more LED lights on set and as they get brighter and better, and you can adjust the colors. And RGB lights, like I said, I have this red light casting on my face right now, and quickly I could go in and change that to any color I want, blue, purple, pink, orange, whatever. And I know that on Hollywood sets they're using RGB lights all the time instead of gelling their lights, because it's quicker and they can adjust it all. And so the quickest way to adjust it, and this is a technology that is being used all the time, are Dmx boards. So if you're unfamiliar with Dmx, it's something that a lot of times you see in live production. Those guys sitting at those boards, they're not always just controlling audio in those live production. A lot of times they're controlling the lights. So all the lights are plugged in with Dmx cables, which are pretty much like XLRs on the back of the lights, and then they run to a control panel. Sometimes they're hardware and they use buttons and switches and things to control them, or sometimes they're completely software and they're connected with Ethernet cables, and you can control it with like an iPad. Whoa, hitting the mic here. You can control it with like an iPad or software there. to change the lights. So that's another thing, is when you set up those LED walls to do your film and you have LED lights lighting the characters and you say, hey, let's make it sunset. And so they change that background on the LED wall. Well, you also need to change the lights and the color temperature of them and how bright or dark they are. So if you have it all running back to a DMX board and you're working on this film, then hey, you can, brighten it up or change the color of it quickly, all from one spot, without running around to each light individually to quickly change the settings on it and everything like that. You can control it from all one board. So that's something that I think is going to become more and more prevalent on especially really professional sets. But let's say you're filming something and you're going to be there for a couple days. Let's say you're filming in a house in the living room and you're going to be there for a while. Well, it might be an advantage to you to run all of your own lights back to a little DMX board. So when you're behind the camera or you have someone that can control the lights, they can quickly dim them up and down without going and walking into the scene. So you're like, hey, can you brighten that up for me or change the color temperature? They can do it all from a simple little DMX panel right there on set. So that's something that I know is getting more and more popular, is DMX control, RGB lights, and LED walls like this. And of course, resolution is going up, 6K, 8K, all that kind of stuff is really increasing. So it's pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, I think we've really covered it. Again, if you guys have any questions, please ask them now. I'm going to spend, the last 4 or 5 minutes here just answering your guys' questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'll start wrapping this up because I think we've kind of covered it. I do want to show you guys this setup here, but my camera's all locked off here. Do you guys want to see what this looks like in my room? See if I can turn on a light and I can break the magic for you. Take us out of the spaceship here. I'm gonna stand up. Stay with me here because I want to show you guys what the room looks like right now and the actual breakdown, so you can see how this looks with this TV behind me, because it actually doesn't look as cool as it does in camera in the room. It kind of looks hilarious. So stick with me. Let's do this. All right. So. Okay, so you can see that we've got the wall or the TV here. Now, I'm going to back it up so you can just see it. Whew, almost lost the TV. Okay, so you can see this giant TV behind here. And that's all it is. It's just the side of my TV here. And I've got these XLR cables running. I just have them strung over the TV to kind of add some realisticness to it. But that's really all that's happening. And then I've got the LED light over here. Bring it in because I can't move everything. Sorry, guys. Let's see. See if I can get the camera off and moving here. Whoa. Whoa, stick with me. I know this is crazy, but you should be able to see that LED light right there. This is what has been kind of shining onto me. Okay. So all these little parts and pieces have all kind of come together to create this. So the LED RGB light and everything like that. I'm pointed down too much here. Yeah, sorry guys, it kind of all started to fall apart as I took the whole set apart. But yeah, so just got a TV behind me, an RGB light shining onto me, the camera set up. I have a light up here as well that's casting down to light me. I've turned on all the lights in the room, so the magic is kind of over, but hopefully you guys understand a little bit better how I got this all set up. It was really simple, and I just have a MacBook Pro plugged into the television with a static image on it of that cockpit. So it's just a plain old photograph, but you could of course put video behind it and have it looping or whatever it is. Let's say you want someone flying through the clouds or whatever, you can have clouds whizzing by and everything like that. So you don't have to use just a static image. You could definitely use video on these walls to make it all come together. So It's just really, really cool technology. I hope this gets the wheels kind of spinning for you in your own mind about some creative things you could do with LED walls and technology, because I believe it is truly the future of filmmaking right now. And I think that it's going to go so far into the future. It's not going to stop. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to get more and more prevalent. Max Soto, thanks for popping in. You missed the stream. Yeah, we got only a couple minutes here left, Max, but thanks for joining in. Yeah, so it's definitely going to continue, and I want you guys, all you filmmakers out there and videographers, to be on the cutting edge and thinking about creative ways that you could start using this LED wall technology. Set up your TV, put a cool image behind you, and start playing with it and see if you can kind of get it to blur out enough and make it look realistic. Maybe you could think of something you could shoot yourself with that is smarter and better and faster and easier to do than using a green screen, getting it all right there in camera. So thanks again for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you everyone that's subscribed to the channel recently. I hope some of you guys are really enjoying the stuff. Anyways, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day. Have a good week ahead of you. Remember, LED wall technology is it's easy to do. You can definitely do it. It's on the rise, and I'm excited to see what else comes this year. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by the stream. We'll catch you guys later. Catch you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day.